difficult.
Very true.
And so immense that it's staggering. Something I didn't realize, folks. This year, 2011, has been the deadliest for tornadoes in decades. 500 people have died this year, all across the country. And it goes to show you that we're really quite vulnerable in the United States. We don't tend to think we are, but we are actually at risk at a fairly moderate level across the entire country from earthquakes.
Yeah.
When we think earthquakes, we think California, but actually it is everywhere. Floods, because there are major arteries and riverways. You've seen in the Mississippi, when it floods, it takes out a whole lot of that same middle heartland of the country. Hurricanes, really, on the east and the west coast have been terrible. And, of course, wildfires. We think about that every year in California,
That's so sad.
in Colorado,
California and,
when the wildfires happen. So I think we are starting to pay attention now more as a populace about greenhouse gases, greenhouse effect. And I think these weather patterns, they're changing slightly enough to become from bad to severe. We've seen it in the last 10 to 20 years. And I think we're at a place now where we have to really make some changes to try to restore our environment.
One of the changes that has occurred because of the innovative ideas, now at least we have some kind of a warning system before they strike. I mean, before there was none of that.
In fact,
but now I really believe that they should come up with how to sort of mitigate them. I don't know whether you can or not.
Believe it or not, all the technology in the world, and you still have so many deaths occur because the warning systems aren't there. Just to share something with you, in 1975, 1978, the warning time, the average warning time was 3 minutes. Think about, you have to pack up your entire life and find a place to
3 minutes,
protect yourself.
That's
it's nothing.
tough.
Here in 2011, we are up to 13.8 minutes, which is substantially a lot more time. But even so, the reason why these things are so much worse now is because we have more sprawling malls.
Yes.
Strip malls. We have a lot more population in these parts of the country.
Of course, death is bad, but so many people, they lose their lives because the entire house is gone. All the collection they had is all gone.
And it's so abrupt, it's so quick, and you lose everything in seconds. I mean, I can't imagine a bigger devastation than that.
Folks, the 2010 census, some of the details of that census are coming through, particularly for the population trends. The Asian Americans and the others have really increased in population around the country. The Washington Post gave some of the figures on the Indian Americans and Chinese and Filipinos and the others. So in Fairfax County, there's 189,661 Asian population, and the largest majority, that's 23% of them, are Indian Americans. In Loudoun County, there's 46,033 people of Asian origin, and guess what? 40-some% of that are Indian Americans.
It's a staggering statistic. Actually, if you remember, I mean, when my parents first came here 20, 30 years ago, it was hard to find an Asian grocery store. It was hard to find an Indian grocery store. In fact, you only had one or two, so people would drive across state boundaries just to come and shop, and they would shop for months at a time because you couldn't get the shopping close to home. Now, this article talks about how you have literally in every strip mall, and within 5 minutes from your house, you can have more than one Asian grocery store.
In Howard County is another one that has 41,000 Asian Americans, and 30% of them are Indian Americans. And in the district, you have 21,056, and more than 6,000 of them are Indian Americans. So
we're the fastest growing segment within the Asian population. We overtook the Koreans, actually, which is interesting because now you're starting to see, even in the schools and so forth, instead of having one or two students, you have large majorities of students in certain classes and certain curriculum that represent the Asian demographic, all of us, not just the Indians. Something else that's happening as a result of it, a couple of things. One, you're starting to see us play with politics, right? Not just within the Indian American segment, but amongst the Asian segments, you're starting to see people from those communities start to participate in the political process. And I think it's a good idea because we are sizable enough now in our numbers within these communities to represent ourselves on a political front. Something else that's happening with the Indian Americans specifically is the rise of Hinduism in this country. This is an article out of the Huffington Post, which is closely mirrors what you're describing as happening to the Indian population here. Hinduism has traditionally made a footing anchoring in the United States, but it came in the 60s as an experimental kind of thing. You remember Woodstock, you remember Ravi Shankar, the Beatles, all these musical groups. They played around with Indian philosophies, they introduced them back, but it wasn't mainstream. But now, the steady stream of Indian immigrants who come here are building hundreds of temples across the nation. Small temples, right? Temples where they can get together and congregate. And as a result, this is the first time they've measured this. The Santa Barbara, California Institute of American Religion discovered some 1,600 temples and centers with an estimated 600,000 practicing Hindus, and that was just in one part of California.
Wow.
There are now estimated 1.2 million people who self-identify as Hindus, mostly Indian Americans, of course, in this country, which is why you're seeing things like Diwali become mainstream. I actually think it's nice. People are becoming aware, so they will actually stop and ask you, how was your Festival of Lights? They now understand when we dress up our houses and put little chalk signs out front, what it all means. Up until now, people had, they were kind of fearful of it, but with it becoming mainstream, everyone has a better understanding, and I think it makes for a healthier environment.
Moving on, folks, Wired Magazine is reporting that you're likely to be robbed not while eating a donut, but while you're working on your iPad or listening to your iPod and the others, because they have seen the rise of the crime around the metro stations, the bus stations, and the others. People are using these electronic gadgets, and there are a lot of people that don't have it, and they want to rob you for it. So be aware that when you're in the metro and others, right here in Washington, D.C., there's a 70% of the total crime on metro is the stealing or snatching away of iPad or cell phone or what the others are. So please be careful. Have you noticed, which I have lately, almost anywhere you go, there are 20 people sitting there, all of them are on their BlackBerries.
I was going to make that point, is that, it's a double-edged problem, because one, people want the devices themselves, and you live your life on these devices now. Everybody's private, personal information is on their smartphone. Yeah. So that's one risk. The second risk is, just as you said, we are so distracted all the time. If you see people walking down the street, they're texting while they're walking.
Yeah.
And
you can go into an airport, 100 people are there. There's no noise because everybody is doing that.
But you think about it, how easy is it to catch somebody who's distracted and just steal a wallet or steal a purse or steal something that they're not paying attention to? Even in our parking lots, we sit in our cars and we text, we're at traffic lights and we text. It's becoming a real problem, I think. These days, if I see someone swerving on the road, I know it's not because they're drinking, it's probably because they're on their phone talking or texting.
You know what the app for that is? It's very important. There is an app for that. And that is interview of Mr. Ford, Bill Ford, of the Ford Motor Company in Fortune magazine, where he says, you know what? We want to make transportation where you really don't pay much attention to it. It's going to drive you, not that you're going to drive it. The problems we have today with the traffic is because we drive. But if it was automatically driven, like in Disney World, when you go, you stand in line
movers.
The people movers, they're just so great. And that's what they want to bring it in. But nevertheless, please, folks, be careful. These personal devices are a temptation to some of the thieves. Younger and younger people are now going in business, particularly when you go to business school. You're forced to come up with the ideas. There's such a thing called Texas Smackdown. It is 42 colleges participated in this Smackdown. Which team and from which college is the one that has the best idea? And of course, their prices. It's called the Super Bowl of the business competition among the students.
These are young entrepreneurs who are going to start a business venture idea.
While they're in school.
Wow.
And it's always a personal experience. For instance, the team number one that won, the guy had a farm, and animals on that farm die or give bad milk or the others because they're always bitten by the mosquitoes. So he came out with a particular medicine to make sure that the livestock will not be affected. by that particular mosquito, and so on and so forth. We have one Indian American on number 3.
Very nice.
I want to tell you, it's called PK Clean, and it's a girl. You know, her name is Priyanka Bakaya. What she came out with is there's just so much trash in the world. You know, there's just so much plastic. And plastic is a killer when it goes to these lakes and rivers and the others. Well, she came up with the idea that 40 tons of that will give you 80 barrels of oil. It can convert. And you know where she put her first factory in? In India. And there actually, she met this guy, and she's from MIT, and there she meets this guy from Harvard. He's up there trying to look for something very similar to that. So they joined hands, and now they're putting a factory here in America where they're going to process 100 tons of plastic and get 80 barrels of oil every single day. You know,
that is brilliant. I think I like that idea the best.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Fortune magazine, folks, you will see about 5 of them that have great ideas, and it's all personal to all of them.
I think that's the wave of the future. Successful businesses won't just be about profit, they'll be about some kind of cause.
Yes. And those are the only ones that last. You know,
agreed.
Look at Khosla Ventures. The guy is energy crazy. He's investing in nothing but energy, and he's being very successful. Yeah.
Because when you have a passion, you drive yourself to higher standards. And I think those higher standards prevail. You win over your audience, you're compelling, and you get investment because the investors even realize that you're committed.
Yeah, it's not a business, it's a passion.
Yes. Well, here is a story that at least lets people be encouraged that passion might still live in the world. You know, so often it is that women who are successful in careers are told, well, you're intimidating. You know, how can men date you or be with you when you're so successful because it's hard for the man, right? Well, this was a question that was posed to Jaspina Ahluwalia, who answered the question, what do you do about the intimidation factor, she was asked. Especially since women are highly educated and they're typically looking for a man, a partner who's also highly educated. And she came back with and said, look, don't despair. There's actually statistics that show that successful men also look for successful women. As many as 71% of high-achieving men in a survey said that a woman's educational or career success makes her more desirable as a wife. As many as 92% of men who describe themselves as either very successful or successful say they are more attracted to women who are successful in their careers. Here's another one. As many as 89% of high-achieving men said they'd like to marry or have already married a woman who is, or as they would describe, more intelligent than they are. Which is
like
great.
That. You know, I mean, anything, you need to educate men because men tend to go, you know, they look at only 2 places. When they meet a girl, they look at 2 places and then they make up their mind whether this is for me or not, and they move on, you know.
And as many as 68% of single high-achieving men report that they would like to marry a woman who is as committed to her career as they are to theirs. So she is just disproving, Jaspina Ahluwalia is disproving the myth that men are turned off by successful women. It's just that they're harder to find.
They're actually hotter, you know. I mean, if they got the money and the looks, whoa, you know, and intelligence.
Winning combination.
If they got the money and the